Well, Glenn, we were here last week and we talked about square foot gardening. This is part 2 of that conversation. And we talked about, using square bales. We're going to replay part of that so people can kind of get up to speed, because that's such a neat way. We're also going to talk about trellising. Yeah, so that's coming up on this episode of Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Baldwitz.
Stay tuned.
It's time for Sustainable Living with Glenn Baldwitz, the show that helps you be prepared to care for your family regardless of the circumstances that may come your way. Now, here's your host for today, Mark Lamb.
Next one will be straw bales. Now,
I did the straw bales one year.
Did you age them first?
I did not do it properly,
Okay.
I can tell you that.
If you're going to use straw bales, which does work, they must be soaked with water, and you'd be surprised how much water you got to put on to soak a straw bale.
All right.
Because they're little tubes. They are straws.
Yeah. Well,
hence the name. And they take a lot of water.
Right.
So, but you have to age them. And you can do that just covering them up with clear plastic, black plastic, I don't care what you do.
Right.
Put them out in the sun, soak them really good, but they need to be there about 3 months.
3 months, okay.
So it takes a while. So when you pull the cover off, you can take a look at them. They're starting to turn gray. Now, to dig down into a straw bale is pretty tough. But what I found is you could take a hole saw or a paddle bit for a drill.
Yes.
And drill little holes all the way around it till you've eaten a hole out of that straw. Now, the straw needs to be sideways, not where the strings on the side rather than on top and bottom.
Okay.
Because it'll eat the strings right off the bottom. Everything pops apart, and now you got this balloons mess everywhere. But turn them up on the side.
Right. Okay.
So the straws are facing up.
Yeah.
So every time it rains, it re-waters it.
It fits. Okay.
And the idea here is once you get that thing soaked and it aged a little bit, it will retain that water, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of watering to it.
Okay.
So let's say you can get 6 nice plants in that straw bale. So it is densely packed. Cucumbers do pretty good in those.
Okay, cucumbers.
But the holes you're going to make are only going to be about 6 inches deep down into the straw bales, and only about 4 to 5 inches around. Fill that with good soil, put your stuff right in there, and there's going to be a microbial action taking place in that straw bale. Oat straw does the best because they seem to carry a lot of microbes with them. So you already have an inoculation of microbes in there already.
Okay.
So you can see you can stack straw bales in all kinds of cool little patterns and you can stair step them up if you want to get artsy fartsy. But straw's not cheap neither. That's $10.
Is that what it is?
Good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good thing about straw and the baling process now is they don't use the little hemp twine. It won't rot. They use that nylon.
Yep.
It'll be blue. It may be pink. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that won't rot away, and it'll hold that together for years.
Okay.
I've got one that I've used for squash because it just loved that stuff. This is my 8th year for that straw bale. Now,
Really?
it looks
Wow.
kind of sad
Right.
because it's kind of pooched out and starting to fall apart because the microbes have just, eat it all up.
Sure.
But I don't want to give it up because it does so well.
Yeah.
I eventually will, but, on to new things.
For sure.
Another new stress. So I'm thinking, okay, it cost me about $1.20 a year to create a square foot garden out of these things.
Yeah.
And actually it'd be 4 square feet of garden in a 1 straw bale. So that's an option. There is so much information out there, so many cool ideas that I haven't even seen yet because I see them all the time. And I went, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's cool. Trellising, if you can get things to grow straight up rather than horizontally on the ground, you just saved a bunch of square foot. Everybody plants bush beans because they're easy to pick. They don't run everywhere. They have a lot more varieties to them. But When I was a kid, we always planted pole beans.
Pole beans, yeah.
Now, you can get string beans that climb. And if you set up a trellis system for these string beans, you don't have to bend over to pick them. That's why my mom liked them, you know. Plus, it saved space.
Sure.
And they put out a lot, and for a long time. So that's an option. Tomatoes, you can get tomatoes that'll run across the ground, keep a little straw under them, you know, and they'll take up a 6x6 area by the time they're really in production.
Okay.
Or you can trellis them up, put tomato cages, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, we have those, yeah.
So the tomato cage, rather than have a 6x6 piece of garden that's taken up by one tomato plant, you have a 1 foot by 1 foot tower.
Right.
So thinking in those kind of terms, you know, letting things grow vertically is a good thing. I've seen a food forest garden once where all the little trees and things that were in this area all had climbing beans on them. Lima beans, they just planted right at the base of the tree. And they just climbed right up the tree.
How about that?
Now, they're only going to go up maybe 7 feet at the most.
Right.
But, man, you know, it's like picking fruit off a tree.
Oh, yeah.
It was
sure.
right there in your face, and you go, wow,
Sure.
that is so cool.
Yeah.
And the tree helps shade from this brutal August sun.
Yep.
So they didn't mind a little shade.
Sure.
And it was a really cool setup this guy had. You get into things like permaculture, where they just landscape everything with food. You know, start out with nut and fruit trees, which is going to be the tallest, and then just work your way down to bushes like blueberries and hash cat berries and bush cherries and all. And they just interplanted all this stuff, so the water stayed on the land. The ground was always covered with something growing, so you didn't lose all this water and microbes. And all of a sudden, the diversity of what you've planted creates the perfect habitat for microbes. The more diverse crops you have, the more microbe species you'll have. And there's like 2,800 varieties, and each one's got a little job. So if you can do that and really work with the soil and make it work for you, it's not as hard. But that's permaculture. That's a little more planning intense, a little more labor intense up front, but it's a lifetime garden is what that is. So that's just an idea for different types of gardenings going down. Let me see where that porch was.
Do you need a drink then? I don't want you to go down too far.
Yes. Got that rock and rye. We'll just start this week off right.
Oh, man.
All right, here we go.
I'm not going to live that rock and ride down.
Why should you? That's not a negative. All right, here we go. All right, container gardening. If you're living somewhere where you don't have any dirt or space that you can plant anything, you know, if you're living in an apartment or townhouse or wherever it's at, they go, no, you can't dig it out in our manicured lawn.
Right.
Our flower beds, we spent $300,000. You'll not dig in them.
Yeah, really.
You go, fine. You go, can I put anything on my patio?
Yeah.
Patio gardens, container gardens. The type of container is going to dictate how well you do, the size and the material. So you could have hanging baskets, which do fairly well. But if you have a black hanging basket, it's going to get hot. Sun will make that black container or dark green container too hot for the plant.
Holds the heat, huh?
So they have these coconut coir liners that you could put in there. It's basically an insulator.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you can still have the nice, pretty pot, but your root system won't get too hot.
Okay.
If the roots get too hot, your plant's not going to do well. It will work itself to death trying to stay cool.
Okay.
Now, what happens when a plant gets hot? What it does is calls down to the root system, says, send me up some water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put it on the surface of all my leaves and let the breeze take away the heat. Now, that's called evaporative cooling. How cool is that?
Yeah.
You know, it's an air conditioner. So the root system does that, but where to get all the water out of that pot? It can't get any more.
Right.
It can't draw
manufacture
water
it, right.
from the surrounding ground because
Right.
there is no surrounding ground.
Mm-hmm.
So watering it gets pretty intense when it gets warm. And it will work. You just have to get in a habit of going, okay, need to water all my hanging plants in the morning before I go to work, before I go to school.
And that's nice and cool, too, instead of heating it or doing it in the middle of a 95-degree temperature.
Yes. You don't want to water these things in anything in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't allow any splashed water on the leaves to evaporate and dry up. And if you leave a lot of water on your plant surface at night, you have the chance of growing funguses and
Okay.
bacteria. But if you do it in the morning, sun comes up, breeze blows through, leaves dry off, everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
So try to water
And it's-
in the morning if you can. And if the only time you can do that is in the evening and your plant needs water, duh.
I think,
Try
Glenn,
not to get it
one
on
thing
the-
I've learned
on the
sitting
leaves.
across from me the last couple of years is it's just like our body. If let's just say your foot cracks because you went around barefoot for 2 days, you're going to do what it takes to repair that part. So you're going to get salve and you're going to rub it on there and put your sock on and sleep at night. You're paying attention to that one part of your body. A plant is the same way. A plant is like a body. It will pull from, like we talked about, branches that were broken off, but they're
Yes.
still attached. And it's trying to send it repairs to something that needs to be pruned, for example.
Right.
The plant is intelligent design, unbelievable.
Almost like the designer
I know.
said, I need to put this function into this DNA.
Right.
So it fixes itself when it gets bad.
So it'll stunt the growth of the rest of the plant to survive that one part so it doesn't.
Depending on the damage, it'll shut off all the water, it'll shut off all the nutrients and sends in these cells that close off the ends to heal itself.
Yeah.
Like a scab on your arm.
Right.
If you knock the bark off your arm, same thing. Knock
Right.
the bark off a tree says, I need to fix that.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's just quite amazing.
Really good
Quite
design,
amazing.
I
Yeah.
think. Containers. All right. We did hanging basket. Window boxes, same principle. Window boxes tend to be a little bit smaller but longer.
Okay.
The bigger it is, the more weight. So whatever you hang your window box on, make sure it can handle it.
Right.
And because the plant's going to add weight to it. You may have started out with a 15, 20-pound box, and by the end of the season, when you got 20 pounds of produce hanging off of it,
Right.
it's going to pull something. So make sure it's secure. Plastic pots. We just talked about the color. Plastic pots, as long as they have drainage, you can't just have a Tupperware bowl with nowhere for that water to go if it becomes excess water. If you got it outside on your patio and a big rain comes and you didn't pay any attention, it'll fill that Tupperware bowl up and drowns your plants. So there needs to be drain holes in the bottom, a couple little rocks in there does okay. The soil inside should drain fairly well, but still be not so airy that it won't hold water. The types of mixes you can get, potting soil mix, that's usually like vermiculite, perlite. Perlite be the little white specks you see in there. The vermiculite kind of looks like chewed up corn cob. And by the way, chewed up corn cob works good too. And a little soil. So the air can move through the soil. You wouldn't think of it, but roots need oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
The top of the plant needs CO2. You see a cool design there too? The top of the plant absorbs CO2. The bottom of the plant, the root systems, absorbs oxygen.
Hmm.
So they got a little system set up.
Yeah.
Yep. The roots put out CO2. the plant up top puts out oxygen.
Yeah. So it's
So
like a circle, man.
Yeah. So
Like a loop.
yeah,
Of sorts.
circle of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you are. That's how that works. But my point is, it has to be able to breathe.
Right.
You know, that root system has to be able to breathe. Plastic pots doesn't allow a lot of exchange unless your soil is kind of light and airy. So keep that in mind if you're using plastic pots. Best ones, terracotta.
Terracotta.
Terracotta. I don't know, that's just a cool word to start with.
Sure.
Terra meaning earth.
Okay.
And I don't know what the cotta means, but it is a breathable material. Breathable and transpirable material. If you put water in a solid terracotta pot, it will actually wick water through the wall of that thing. If you ever see that a terracotta pot's got that green film on the outside, you know, maybe there a few years. Mm-hmm. It's because water transpires through it, and the bacterias and little plant life, microscopic plant life, have landed on that like a moss.
Right.
And says there's moisture here, and there's a little bit of minerals here because it's made out of clay, and it starts growing on the outside. Now, if a really old terracotta pot looks really cool, you know, there'll be several different kinds of lichens and all kinds of stuff growing on them. It's because they can grab a hold. It's porous. Mm-hmm. All right. So terracotta will leak water through, but it's very slow. As that water comes through and the air moves across it, again, evaporative cooling. It keeps your root system cooler. Now, in Africa, in the food markets, they have these giant terracotta pots with a second terracotta pot on the inside. The gap between the two is filled with wet sand.
Oh, really? Just to keep some
The
moisture.
temperature inside the pot is 20 degrees colder than the outside temperature.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Now, you really need to look. I forgot what these things are called. Zin, I think it's ZIN pots for evaporative cooling for the markets in Africa. And these were around thousands of years ago. Somebody just kind of rediscovered and brought them out.
Wow.
And they helped the people at the markets, and that's why they did this, because you would lose about 20% of your food if you just set it out in the African
Oh, yeah. And the,
environment
Sure.
at 110 degrees.
Sure.
So that as that wet sand puts moisture to the outside pot and the air blows across it, it cools the pot. Ergo, inside drops the temperature by 20 degrees. Isn't that something?
it is something.
There's a whole lot of principles to that. Now, if you buy one of the cool terracotta pots that have that beautiful glazing on the outside, it does not work.
Because it stops the process.
Yeah, that glazing on the outside is actually glass
Oh,
that seals it up.
Right.
So it won't work. Now, you got a cool looking pot, I agree.
Right.
But it's going to retain its heat. And that's not what you want when you're trying to keep your food production high.
right.
Bigger the pot, better the R. Bad thing about terracotta, that's, you know, let's say you have a 16-inch by 16-inch cool raw terracotta pot. Mm-hmm. That's a $50 pot. But what if you could make that? You ever done a potter's wheel?
I've seen it.
Isn't that cool?
I've never
Yeah.
done it. It looks
All right.
like
Well,
fun.
the clay that they use for some of that stuff is very fine and doesn't work as good as terracotta. Terracotta is that red clay.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of red clay here in Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
I really do want to throw some pots and have terracotta pots, but I got too many other projects. But the idea was to dig up that soil, sift it all out,
Right.
grind it down with just a brick so you end up with a finer dust, sift it all out, add your water back to it, and you end up with this fine clay. And you can make it. You don't need a potter's wheel. You can shape it by hand,
Mm-hmm.
but you save yourself $50.
Right.
If you repeat it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big thing. A lot of people are growing on their patios. They just can't afford that terracotta. If a man was smart, he'd open up a little terracotta shop just for gardeners. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better that they're not perfect. That way they know it didn't come from China.
Right.
Right? Yeah, and
True.
dirt's free. Dirt's free, folks. You know, well, that ain't true neither. It's about $20,000 an acre, but it's relatively easy to get from somebody that has a little land. You can dig up a little patch of dirt. If you don't come over to the house, I'll give you some red dirt.
There you go.
I've got an abundance of it. But so the terracotta is the ideal thing to have. Anything that breathes like that. Now we get into the neti pots or the fabric pots.
Mm-hmm.
They work pretty darn good. One problem with them. Because they're really porous and really allow a lot of moisture to wick through them, you will be watering the crap out
All
of
the
them.
time, yeah.
So I seen a guy say, well, I can fix that. He put in drip irrigation with a 5-gallon bucket. So rather than water everything, he just run a few little drip pipes out of a 5-gallon bucket that he fills up every morning. Just dumps it in, and it just continually gives it water and the thing, and it keeps it cool.
Huh.
That's all smart, and these things are like $1 a piece.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A burlap bag. You're gonna have a hard time finding burlap bags, but they're out there.
Sure.
You know, the new feed bags that Chicken Feed comes in is plastic coated.
No, it's almost
does
like
not breathe.
a tarp.
Right? Yeah. The burlap has a little lighter color than a dark plastic or a dark bag would have,
Okay.
like landscape fabric. You could
Right.
sew your own if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Find some material, put it together. Now they're not going to last forever. A burlap bag will probably last you about 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
And they're about $1 a piece. But you get two. You get 2 for 1 because you're going to cut it in
Cut it
half.
in half,
Now
right.
that's a big bag.
Sure.
Now, I don't care how you do it to make a little frame out of it or just bag it up. You could make pouches and just set them on some type of tray that would hold a little water. And if the water is too much, it'll just wick out the sides down in your little tray and doesn't make a mess on your patio.
Right.
That's what I'm after. But
Yeah.
you can also just bag the whole thing up. Let's start over. Cut your burlap bag in half.
Mm-hmm.
Fill it full of good soil. Pull that thing up and pinch it closed. Tie a little string around the top. Now you got a bag of soil.
Mm-hmm.
Cut little X's all the way around that thing in the top 1/3 and put your plants in it.
Okay.
You see the principle
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
So now you've got this bag that has 6 pots in it,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about 16 inches round, 18 inches round. So you have all that surface area to plant in. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and just because of the way it's porous, you just pour your water.
You could dump your water right on the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to absorb that water
Yeah.
because it is so porous.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool method.
Yeah.
Another one was a guy put a piece of pipe in the middle of it, tied the bag around the pipe, about a 3-inch pipe, but he made the pipe about 2 feet tall.
Okay.
Where it was inside the bag, he just drilled a bunch
Still
of holes.
Series of holes.
Now he fills that whole thing up, which holds about 2 gallons.
Sure.
Now, sometimes it'll overwater, sometimes it won't. And it will wick out into the water and really give it a good dose. And that's an easy way to water.
Okay.
So, and these are all
pretty
things
good
I've
idea.
found in the last, 2 years. I'm thinking, dang, I should do that. But, I got a half-acre garden. I really don't need to be making these things. But if you didn't have this space,
Right.
we're talking about, I don't have gardens. I need something that I can grow on my patio,
Right.
my porch, beside my driveway, whatever it is. There are methods out there, and a lot of people are coming up with some cool ideas. One of the ideas I seen was a tower, where a guy had a wire cage and put a mesh liner in it, kind of like we just talked about, like a burlap liner, but it wasn't made out of burlap. But he filled it full of dirt. It was about 4 foot high and had strawberries all along. Oh, it was just so cool, but that don't work. Your top couple strawberries will grow, but there's too much ground pressure on the
Push it
root
down on the
system,
okay.
and it circumvents the natural design.
Okay.
Because in your garden, there's only about 6 inches of dirt that's pushing down on the root system. If you have a tower, you have 6 times that pressure.
True.
And the system goes, get off of me. That's too heavy.
Right.
So they come out with another tower system, which I'm sure you've seen, where it's individual pots that stack on one another.
Okay.
Now,
You get the tower effect, but you don't get that pressure off
exactly.
of each one. Okay.
And they got a cool little watering system in it, but that little tower is about $200.
Wow.
I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
So there's a learning curve on some of this stuff, and you have to know what the plant will tolerate. I'll say something about your pots, and I don't care what kind it is. Don't set that out on the black asphalt.
Oh, because of the heat.
Don't set it directly onto the concrete. Have a air gap between the concrete and your pot, because that concrete's heating up over time.
Right.
It can't handle all that heat. But if you have a little air gap, that heat won't transfer straight up to it. It could be as simple as just a piece of rubber underneath, or just a couple bricks, whatever it is.
Right,
Get it
just
up off of that
like a paper.
solid surface that's holding heat.
Right.
Asphalt, terrible. It's black, folks.
Yeah.
It's going to absorb heat.
Absolutely.
You ever walked across asphalt barefoot? You'll do it once. At the beach.
Heck, even in Florida in the summertime.
Oh, God.
With your shoes on, you feel it coming up through your feet.
So your plants can't handle that kind of heat.
Right.
So you need that air gap. Well, fortunately, we don't have that kind of Florida heat up here, but it could be. You never know about Virginia weather. So we're about done. That'll give you a good start, give you an idea of what you're going to look for, what you can use for the space you have.
Yeah.
Explore these out, start researching them, find out what works for you.
Yeah.
Because there's no excuse about growing your own food just because you don't have a garden space. Yeah. And that's all we got today.
Well, Glenn, thank you.
Join us again next week for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, helping you be prepared and not scared. This podcast drops every Friday anywhere you get your podcast.